Welcome to the Man Up God's Way podcast, a show that dives into the real, raw, and relevant issues for men and their faith, life, and community. Now, your host, Jody Burkeen.
Hey guys, Jody Burkeen here with the Man Up God's Way podcast. I want to welcome you today to our exciting conversation that I'm getting ready to have with our guest. But I want to take a moment just to say hello and to say thank you guys for listening. If you would, take an opportunity to share this podcast with everyone on your social media. Let others know about it, and so we can reach more and more people. We're in our 5th season this year. Really excited about what God is doing. And just a really quick update on our app that is coming out in the next couple of weeks. We have a brand new app that is going to be designed, that is being designed for discipleship and discipleship only. We've got over 5 years worth of discipleship material and studies for you and the men in your sphere of influence, and we're really excited about that. It's going to have a community group on it as well. It's going to have a fitness section. It's going to have a prayer wall. We're going to have all kinds of great things on there. There'll be videos, a section on there for books that we recommend that you read, and so much more. So be looking for that on all of our social media platforms, and be looking for the Man Up God's Way app soon and coming soon. Really excited about that. Without further ado, I want to introduce my guest, Mark Ellis. Mark, how are you doing today?
Very good. Thanks for having me.
Man, I'm excited that you're on the podcast here. And as we were just talking right before we started the show, you're in nice, balmy area of California. And tell us a little bit about your story and your I always call it the Saul side and the Paul side. Tell us a little bit about your testimony and how you came to know Christ and what it looks like after Christ.
Well, I grew up in Southern California in a nominally Christian home. We went to church very occasionally. I don't remember ever going really in high school. And I don't think I ever really heard the gospel clearly till I was 17. And when I heard it, it convicted me immediately that it was the truth. But so I believed Jesus was the Savior, but I wasn't ready to make him Lord of my life. I was having too much fun. I liked the party lifestyle. And I thought, well, this can wait. I'll put this aside. My parents foolishly let me go up to Berkeley for college. Oh, wow. And so I spent 4 years up there. And when I graduated, I tell people I was an educated fool because I did not know God. Okay, right. So that took me another 7 years of me just living for self in my 20s down in Southern California. And I started going to a singles Bible study more to meet girls than to meet God. Right. And so they always had a message, and the message that was going one in one ear and out the other. Finally, I heard a guy recommend a book called Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell.
Yeah, that's good.
And I thought, I'm 29 years old. I kind of believe in God, but I'm not too sure about Jesus. I really need to figure this out. So that the name of that book just stuck in my head. And so I went and I bought it, read it by myself in my little bachelor cave. And it was 2 chapters that really got me. One was about the manuscript evidence for the Bible. That was important to me. And the other was the chapter on the resurrection, because I figured if Jesus really rose from the dead, that set him apart from Buddha and Muhammad and all these other religious figures out there. So when I finished that chapter, I thought the evidence was compelling. I got down on my knees on the shag carpet and prayed to receive Christ with the prayer that was at the end of the book. And it was like one operating system was was removed and another operating system was downloaded from above, because I immediately saw the world differently. And just in a matter of seconds, I had been very liberal in my political, social views. I thought abortion was a good thing. And in those few seconds after I was born again, God convicted me that abortion was a horrible, horrible evil. Wow. And so I thought, what in the world is happening here? I don't have any new information that's telling me this, but suddenly I'm looking at that in a completely different way. So that was the first confirmation that something internally had changed. And then having a hunger for the Bible, listening to worship music. I never did those things before.
Right. Wow, that is great. I love when, you hear stories about the changing spirit that happens when the Holy Spirit indwells in you, and the instantaneous, realization that, man, the sin that I've been living in is not where I'm supposed to be. Whether it's the thought process or even the actions, and the Holy Spirit starts working on you. Mm-hmm. So when that happened, so how did it go along with friends and family, and especially being at Berkeley at the time? I imagine that was pretty a radical change that was happening compared to everybody else.
This actually happened 7 years after I graduated.
7 years. Okay, my bad. Yeah. I'm sorry, I missed that. Okay.
Yeah. So I had been living for myself in my 20s, and there were some friends I alienated for sure. Okay. One in particular, one of my best friends, I'm still estranged from, because I came on pretty strong as a new believer with a zealous new believer. And so, yeah, I mean, it was very sad to lose some friends and a lifestyle. But I was ready for change. I had lived for myself for 29 years, and I thought, I really am ready to live for something higher and deeper, better than myself.
Right. That's great. So from there, what happened after, you're bachelorette for a little while? I'm assuming you're not still a bachelor.
Well, the beautiful thing God did, I met the Lord and I met my wife in the same year. So age 29 was a huge year for me. And I married up. I met a very beautiful woman. The time we met, I was not born again. And then we only dated for a week. I met her in that singles Bible study. She had only visited once. Thank God I was there that night. And she took off on a trip to Asia. She said she was going for a month, but it turned into be 5 months.
Oh, wow.
And I actually sent her a cassette tape, for those of you who still remember cassette tapes, as a Christmas greeting. And I thought, I need to leave an impression so she doesn't forget me. So I sent her this tape, and I did some impressions on there. I made it humorous, but I never heard back from her. And I thought, oh man, wow. The humor bombed, and so I kind of forgot about Sally. And 5 months go by. I went out to Palm Springs to meet two girls I knew from Berkeley, or a couple girls. And I thought, maybe I can get something going with one of these girls, but nothing went right the whole weekend. Finally, I took her to the airport. She was flying back to the Bay Area, San Francisco. And I ran into a guy I knew, and I introduced the two of them. They hit it off immediately. And they were on the same flight. So I was sitting there waving as they went off together. And I got in my car, and I'm driving home just completely depressed and demoralized. At being single at age 29, but I was a brand new believer. So I'm driving home, and I thought, people say you're supposed to give your problems to God. So I'm going to try that. So I said, okay, God, I've been a failure finding a wife. I give this to you. You take over. 45 minutes later, I drive into my little bachelor cave, and turn on the answering machine, and there's Sally's voice saying, "I've come back from Asia. It'd be great to get together sometime."
Oh
And
my goodness.
that was the most consequential and the fastest answer to prayer of my life.
Wow.
And within 2 weeks, I knew we were going to get married.
That's great. That is great. Well,
Yeah.
God was moving big time. Those are big life changing moments. Finding a wife and finding the Lord all at the same time.
Yes.
Dang,
Yes.
that is great. So how much longer was it before you guys got married?
We dated for 6 months and had a 6-month engagement. And as a single man, I had a 6-month rule because I didn't want to waste, my time or her time.
Right.
And I thought after 6 months, you should be able to fish or cut bait. So that's what I did. And I asked her to marry me. Fortunately, she said yes. And again, that was a huge change. Having the Lord in my life, having a woman in my life were huge changes.
Right. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So a year later, you're 30 years old now at this time. You got married. Right. And
right.
Now she was a believer too? Is that correct?
She was a believer from the age of 13. And okay. She came to the Lord through a sleepover, and a girl told her about God's grace, that you didn't have to be perfect to get to heaven. And she bolted up out of her sleeping bag and said, "What?" She thought she had to be perfect.
Right.
And
that's great.
She told her Ephesians 2, 8 and 9. And Sally was born again a couple of weeks later at a Christian camp called Camp Idrahaji in Colorado. And Idrahaji stands for "I'd rather have Jesus."
Oh, wow.
And they gave her the Joy Award at the end of that week.
That's great. That is great.
Yeah.
So you guys got married, and so what kind of career did you have at the time?
I was working in real estate, commercial real estate, mainly doing property management, industrial property. So I did that for 18 years, and then answered a call into Christian ministry and was a assistant pastor at a small church, and started doing writing on the side because it was a part-time position. Your sound just went out. You're muted. No sound. There's a little mute symbol on the corner of bottom of your screen. There it goes. I'm still not hearing.
All right, how's that?
Hey, good. I can hear you.
Goodness,
that was weird.
I saw my computer just blink, and the next thing I know, my I'm gonna mark that clip there so I can go back and edit it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we were at you getting your part-time pastor and writing. So
Right.
all right. So you started. You were a part-time pastor and a writer. So tell me how the writing started and what led you to do that.
Yeah, I'd always had an interest in writing, and I wanted to see if I could use it in some way in ministry. And I met a guy, was introduced to a guy named Dan Wooding, who was originally a British tabloid journalist, but grew up in the mission field. And he went to Uganda after Idi Amin's reign and saw the horror inflicted upon Christians in Uganda. And he came back to his faith and decided he wanted to devote his writing to Christian causes. And so I met him, and he allowed me to start contributing to his news service, which was called Assist News. And my very first assignment was covering Promise Keepers at the LA Coliseum.
Oh, wow.
So that was 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I did that.
And
it led to me meeting a lot of very inspirational people, covering their testimonies and their stories. And that's what has ended up in my book, my favorite stories written over the last 25 years.
Wow. My first experience as a Christian, I gave my life to the Lord in 2003. Wasn't much longer that Promise Keepers was here in St. Louis, and me and my two brothers, we went, and I was I was an atheist prior to giving my life to the Lord, and so I'm trying to like when your experience, all of a sudden you realize that abortion wasn't right and all this kind of stuff. Mine was a little bit more gradual. I was trying to fight the flesh and live in the spirit a lot. And the first Promise Keepers, actually the only Promise Keepers I ever went to, we got into the stadium here in St. Louis, and all of a sudden on one side the guys go, "We love Jesus. Yes, we do. We love Jesus. How about you?" And they would point to the other side of the stadium. And all I could remember was I was telling my brothers, I was like, "Oh, I think we're at the wrong place." Like it felt so weird. Like just, I was like, I think are we at a gay convention or something like that? Because it was so, just against the flesh. And by the end of the conference, I was on my face bawling. My brother went forward, gave his life to the Lord, and it was a great experience.
Praise the Lord. That's great.
Yeah. So you started, writing and working as a journalist. Are you still pastoring at this time now?
Yeah, I was doing both.
Okay.
And so I was getting experience in the trenches, dealing with church life in a small church in Southern California on the coast. And also, as I said, meeting some very inspirational people along the way.
Okay, that's great. So, when as you're progressing in this now, are you still with the church now, or is it? Has it?
I was on staff for 9 years,
Okay.
And then I went off. Actually, my son became the youth pastor at that church after I went off staff. And so normally I'd probably want to leave after going off staff.
Right.
A lot of pastors do, but it was great for us to hang around and watch what God did through our son, which really was gratifying because he had a big impact on the young people in Laguna. I'd like to say he had more impact in 1 year than I had in 9 years.
Right.
And the people, the young people especially. So that really thrilled our hearts to see that impact.
That's awesome. That is awesome. Well, what a great. And how many kids do you have now?
We have 2 boys,
Okay.
and they're both following the Lord, which is wonderful. They're both mission minded. Sam is managing a burger restaurant at the moment, but I think he wants to get back into ministry at some point.
Right. That's great.
Yeah.
That is good. So in your travels as a journalist, we'll talk about your book. That did it launch in April? Is that when it launched last
It
year?
launched about a year ago.
Okay.
Yes, When Kingdom Light Shines.
Okay. We'll talk
Yeah.
about that here in just a second. But through that, so through your journeys, your journalistic bent was to faithful stories or stories of great testimony and of hope. And so, like, as you're looking back on those years of doing that, obviously some of the stories are in this book, but like, what are some of the most impactful stories that you have over your time just interviewing and meeting people? I'm assuming throughout the world. Is that
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of them initially were in the U.S., but
right?
it did. There were people overseas as well. And one of the ones that I loved meeting personally was in where we lived in Southern California, was the last living D-Day chaplain, Colonel Russell Barber.
Wow.
And he was just a wonderful man. He ended up, both of our sons became Eagle Scouts. And he spoke at my older son's Eagle Scout ceremony. But Colonel George Russell Barber, he was on the Sunday before D-Day, he was holding services on 11 ships in Weymouth Harbor, England, and handing out pocket Gideon Bibles.
Wow.
He would say, because there's no atheists in foxholes. But the chaplains, there were 5 chaplains who went ashore on D-Day. None of the chaplains carried weapons. And if you've seen that battle scene depicted in Saving Private Ryan, you have a sense of just how intense that battle was. So you can imagine getting off your Higgins boat, and he led his men off of that craft, no weapon. And he says, I had no visible weapons, but I had the sword of the Spirit. And immediately the boat landing next to them blew up. So his first assignment jumping off the boat, was cradling men in his arms as they're dying and reciting John 14 to them. In my Father's house are many mansions. I go to prepare a place for you. And he got ashore. He could not get over the cliffs. That day, it was so he ended up digging a foxhole on the beach and spending the night on the beach watching tracer bullets going overhead.
Oh my God!
And he said, "I dug that with the help of God, I dug that foxhole deep enough so he was safe through the night." But then he got over the cliff. The next day, he met the famous war correspondent Ernie Pyle, and they walked the beach together and saw all the, remains and all the things the soldiers had dropped, in the high tide line.
Oh my God!
And he said Ernie Pyle stopped to pick up one of the pocket Gideon Bibles, and he said, it could have been that I handed that soldier that Bible the day before. And Ernie Pyle wrote about that in a famous column talking about D-Day and walking on that beach. And he said, I never knew why I stopped to pick it up, and I never knew why I stopped to put it back down. Sadly, Ernie Pyle was killed by a sniper on Okinawa. After VE Day, he went to the Asian theater of war and was picked off by a sniper on Okinawa, a tragic loss.
Wow. What an amazing story. And so you got to talk to him before he passed away then?
Yes. Yeah. And I was with him at a nursing home. When his health started to fail, I went to see him, and he still had a firm grip. His hands were like a baseball mitt. I mean, he had these big hands. He was a man's man. And so that was one of the great privileges of my life to to know him
That's
before he passed
amazing.
away.
That's amazing. So is that what you're currently doing as well, or are you just writing books at this time? Are you still?
I'm still I just put out a book, a story last week, a testimony, one of the more inspiring ones I've done. A guy named Odin Fong who had a near-death experience of hell after an LSD trip. So yeah, I'm still, I love inspiring testimonies. There's nothing that gets my blood going more than that. And so I have about 1,400 that I've collected on my website, godreports.com. All the stories connect to a page, a landing page that presents the gospel.
Right.
And we have about 30 people a month receiving Christ through those testimonies.
Golly, how many people a month?
About 30.
Wow. And what do they do? Do they just leave comments saying, or do you have like kind of like a process that goes through?
Rather than reinvent the wheel, we connected that page to a group called Global Media Outreach, and they do the follow-up. They will send a Bible. They will try to find a church, but it was started by a former Apple executive, one of Walt Wilson, one of the few in the upper ranks of Apple during the first 10 years or so of their operations. And he, as a believer, he got this vision for setting up these websites all over the world that present the gospel. And I went to a presentation. He's left us now. He passed away, but showing a map of the world with little lights, and every time somebody clicks saying to make a decision for Christ, you see a little light up, and it's all over the globe.
Oh my goodness!
You see them just going off one after the other.
Oh,
so we figured we'll connect my stories to his ministry, and so that's been a nice partnership.
Wow, that is great. That is great. Now, do you do any preaching or speaking at this time?
At our old church, our old church, we had a preaching rotation of 7 guys who traded off in the pulpit. It was kind of a rare experiment at first, because our lead pastor had been a worship pastor, and he felt more called to lead worship than he did to the pulpit. So we started this arrangement. We decided we liked it. It was mainly the elders preaching. So I preached in that former church about 130 or 40 times in a rotation. I still get called occasionally to do that, but I do miss being able to preach once a month. That was a very, very nice privilege.
I bet that was. Yeah. I'm the senior pastor of a church, and I'm training a few guys now, and gonna see how that works. Doing a little bit of rotation. I typically preach about 48 weeks a year.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna start giving. We only have a Sunday service, Sunday morning service. Sunday nights are kind of gone now, and we do Wednesday night discipleship in small groups throughout the week. So looking forward to training these guys and getting them moving and grooving.
Well, I can vouch for that whole approach. It was very meaningful in the life of our church.
Great. That's good.
It takes some humility as a pastor to relinquish that too.
Right. Yeah. We're in our 10th year, and it's, just building the foundation. We founded it in 2015. And so actually going in our 11th year, and, the foundation's built, our theology is stable. And the way that I train these guys, I don't think there's going to be, a shooting star trying to, reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So not that we're not open for ideas, but God's given us a vision, and we're kind of sticking with it so far.
That's so great.
Yeah, God has been good. So what does the future look like for Mark Ellis. Like, what are you content and you feel like this is God's calling on your life to continue to share these stories and meet these people, or do you see something different?
Well, I do. Yeah, I do enjoy writing.
Mm-hmm.
I just turned 70, which was, kind of, I think it hit me psychologically more than 50 or 60. And I'm thinking, there is Father Time is undefeated here. So
Right, yeah, exactly.
Moses did a good job training Joshua.
Right.
You can't say that about every Christian leader.
Right.
And so I want to be intentional about training someone to come in and take my place. And I've really started that process to do that.
Right. That's great. Yeah. You don't look 70, by the way.
Thank you.
I was going to say we're probably the same age, but I'm 56, getting ready to be 57 next month or month and a half. But yeah, you look great for 70. So
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, there's 100% chance that, nobody's going to make it out of this life alive.
Barring the rapture.
Yeah, barring the rapture, exactly. But, well, the great thing, when I'm sitting here listening to your stories and just, the people that you meet and, the family that you have, you've built a legacy. And obviously your writings will, as long as the internet lasts and paper, doesn't get burned up, your legacy will last for a long time, well after you're gone, and having to find somebody or getting to find somebody that's going to carry that legacy on. Maybe that's the prayer that you probably have now, like, Lord, give me a wife, and all of a sudden you got one. So maybe that's the prayer you have now. Lord, give me somebody who wants to write and share stories and bring them to me soon.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That would be amazing. Maybe one of your sons will step up and do that.
Mm-hmm. That'd be nice.
So let's talk a little bit about your book.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of hit on it a little bit, but your book is called "When Kingdom Light Shines: Stories That Inspire Faith." And tell us what drew you there. I'm also an author. I have 8 books that I've published, and so I know the process that you've probably gone through. It's this idea that kind of lingers in the back of your head for a little while, and then you put a little something on paper, and then you put a little something more on paper, and then eventually it turns into what you would consider a book, and then you cipher through it and try to figure out what sticks and what doesn't stick, and you edit and you re-edit and you write and you rewrite. And how did this process for you begin?
Well, this is my 3rd book, and in a sense, this was a little bit easier in that I had written all these stories over the years, 25 years worth of stories. So then it became kind of narrowing it down, which are my favorite stories. And with the aid of Google Analytics, I can tell which stories had the most views and were most impactful. So I put 60 of my favorite and others' favorites into this book. And so, it's been gratifying in that people are ordering multiple copies to give to family and friends because they see the impact of these testimonies. And, they're short stories. People can read them devotionally in a sense. And we know the word does not return void. So Amen. I love that it's having an impact.
That's awesome. And so how do people get a hold of this book?
It's on Amazon. Okay. And so they can just put in When Kingdom Light Shines by Mark Ellis.
Okay.
And I took the cover photo on trip to Israel. That photo I took on the Sea of Galilee.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it was about a year before the war started. I'm happy we got to go and tour that before it started.
Right. That's on my bucket list. I was doing my master's in theology, and my trip was we were supposed to go overseas and do, some training at other universities and stuff. We were supposed to go to Israel, And all of a sudden, this was last year, and the war broke out, and we ended up going to London instead. But it was cool. We got to go to Oxford.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so it was really cool to see, some places there that have a lot of historical value, and then to step into Oxford, which at one time was a seminary, which now is the cesspool of atheism.
Right.
Basically. So it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a great picture. Yeah, Israel's on my bucket list. That's where I want to go next. So,
Mm-hmm.
what about your other books? What are those? What are those about, and what are those like?
Well, my first book was the story of how I came to Christ.
Okay.
So the longer form version of that story that I told you earlier.
Great.
And one part I left out in the story was why my wife called me after 5 months. And that's because her mother came to visit, and Sally played the cassette tape that I had sent her. And her mother says, "Well, who is this guy?" And her mom's, so I said, "Oh, just some guy I went out with, And she says, "Well, did you call him? Did you thank him for the tape?" She said, "No." And her mother did something very uncharacteristic. She slammed the fist with her tape, the table with her fist. And she said, "Now you're looking for the wrong thing in a man. I want you to call him and thank him for that tape." So I owe my mother-in-law big time for her calling back.
That's great. That is great. Yeah, mother-in-laws are, when you find the right one, man, they're amazing. That's for sure.
I was blessed in that regard.
Amen. Me too. Yeah, me too. It's funny. My first book was somebody had challenged me to write my testimony, and I started just writing my testimony. And the next thing I knew, I had 150, 200 pages, and so I broke it up, just kind of in the stages of my life, and ended up becoming a book, and it's still on the Amazon bestsellers list.
Oh, fabulous!
12 years later, it's kind of how we launched Man Up, our men's ministry. So it's been a blessing. So sometimes your testimony will take you a lot further than you ever thought it would, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. So, Mark, is there anything else that you think our audience should hear from you, or maybe are you going to be speaking anywhere? Are you traveling anywhere soon, or where can people find more about you other than just your book? Do you have a website?
Well, on the website, godreports.com.
Okay, godreports.com. We'll put that in the comments and the links as well.
I'm about to go on a mission trip to Burma, also known as Myanmar, and Thailand.
Oh, wow.
And in 2015, I was part of a missions group at our church that decided we wanted to adopt an unreached people group in Myanmar, Burma, an unreached tribe.
Wow.
And we did that. And in 2019, me, my wife, and our younger son had the privilege of being in a small house church with about 10 or 12 of the first known Thai Lang believers in northern Burma. And that was one of the great moments of my life. But because they've had a civil war going on, it's still going on. I haven't been able to go back, but I am going to visit the capital and visit with Nai Tong, who was the young evangelist church planner who really made this happen. I was able to meet him on my first trip and direct him a little bit, but God really did it. He gets the credit for reaching this unsaved tribe.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, we have the same thing. We have what we call an outpost in Haiti, Man Up God's Way outpost in Haiti, and we have 40 pastors that we train, and haven't been able to be there since 2000 and I think it was 2021, 22, just because of all the same thing, the Civil War and the assassination of the president and all kinds of stuff. So. But
I can share about one of the other inspiring people I interviewed.
Please do.
And that's the only known survivor from the impact zone on 9/11.
Oh, wow.
A man named Stanley Premnath. Have you heard his story?
No,
Okay. Well, he was an immigrant to the U.S., worked hard, and rose to the position of overseeing all of Fuji Bank's operations on the 81st floor of Tower 2. That they had the whole floor, 40,000 square feet, 1 acre. And Stanley was one of the few Bibles at one of the few Christians
right.
at Fuji Bank. His practice was to sit at his desk at lunchtime, read his Bible, eat it. He brought his lunch to work. And on the morning of 9/11, he started getting these phone calls. Stanley, are you okay? Are you okay? Because the other building was hit first, and he didn't even know what happened initially.
Wow.
So, but he began to see, fiery, flaming objects coming down from the first tower that was hit. And he was ready to evacuate. But at that point, they were telling people in building 2, your building's okay, stay where you are. And so he was standing next to his desk, looking out toward the Statue of Liberty, when he saw a jet coming straight toward his office, eye level. And it was United Flight 175.
Oh, my God.
And even though he said, I had a soundproof, this was a soundproof building, I could hear the engines revving right before it hit the building. And he said, I'll never get that sound out of my mind.
Wow.
But if you, Stanley, right before it hit, he cried out to the Lord. He said, Jesus, save me. He dove under his desk. And I don't know if you've seen the video replays of that plane. It's coming in level, but then right at the last minute, the wing kind of turns up.
Right.
And the bottom of that wing went right through the top of his office. And it of course, he was engulfed in a huge fireball. And I like to say this is a modern day version of Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego.
Oh, my goodness.
Because there was a fourth man in the flames. And if it hadn't been for the Lord, there's no way anybody would have survived that impact zone.
Wow.
So I don't want to spoil the story, but I tell the story of how he survived. And it's quite a riveting story in the book.
Wow, that is amazing. Well, I'm going to have to grab the book then to finish the story. That is great. That is great. Well, Mark, man, I really appreciate your time and hearing your testimony, hearing your story about what Jesus is done for you and through you. And man, what a blessing it is, and what a great testimony it is. And we here at Man Up God's Way will be praying for you that you do find a successor to help you, continue these stories and these testimonies and these, stories of hope that, can be shared around the world, and that it'll always be on print. And I appreciate what you're doing there. And I look forward to getting the book and diving into it and just checking out some of those stories. Even I think a lot of times Christians get to a place to where complacency kicks in, and we don't see the major stories that Jesus is doing all around the world a lot of times because we're kind of in our own little Christian bubble. And we miss, the God showing up and showing off in our lives. And, hearing stories like that, I know that are faith builders, and I appreciate you doing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for having me.
Well, God bless you, man, and keep writing. And we look forward to seeing what God's going to do next in you.
Thank you so much.
All right, brother. Take it easy and have a great day.
Okay.
You've been listening to the Man Up God's Way podcast. Visit us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple, iTunes, and our website at manupgodsway.org.